Mr. Kind is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for holding this important hearing, and I appreciate the witness's testimony here today. I would be the first to admit that IPAB requires a leap of faith, but I supported it. I think it makes sense. I think it is a fail-safe backstop effort to constrain the largest and fastest growing area of spending in the federal budget, and state budgets, and local budgets, and business budgets, and family budgets, which is healthcare costs. And if people have a better idea of how we can bend the cost curve out in the future, I'm all for that as well. But I think the key to reforming a healthcare system that was in desperate need of reform was through delivery system reform and through payment reform. Got to change the way healthcare is delivered so it is more integrated and coordinated and patient-focused. And we have a lot of models throughout the country that have shown us ways to do that. And then ultimately, we've got to change the way we pay for healthcare, so that we're paying for the value or the quality or the outcome of care that's given and no longer the volume of care. And that has been the nemesis of the so-called fee-for-service system for years. And everyone on this panel, I think, recognizes the challenge that we're facing. Fee-for-service is not producing the type of outcomes or the bang for the buck that we need with our health care dollars. IPAB is merely, from my perspective, is a fail-safe mechanism that if certain reforms don't lead to spending reductions and better outcomes, there's a way to address that. And one of the big problems out there is the overutilization of health care. More tests, more procedures, more things being done, but without the desired results. But we've got competing ideas on which way to go. The other side, from what I can tell, would just as soon shift the costs on the backs of people who can least afford it. Ms. Moon, let me start with you. For example, under the so-called Ryan budget plan that virtually all of them had supported last year, the Republican plan would end Medicare's guaranteed benefits for things like hospital stays and doctor visits. They would replace it with a cash voucher. Can IPAB do that?
No, it cannot.
Also under the Republican plan, would increase the cost for Medicare beneficiaries, according to the CBO analysis of it, by more than doubling out-of-pocket costs for new enrollees, up to $6,000 a year when it's fully implemented. Can IPAB accomplish that?
No, fortunately, it would not.
And finally, the latest version, apparently, that they're toying with and might include in their next budget resolution is the so-called Ryan-Wyden plan that embraces this concept of a target growth rate, that if certain spending reductions don't occur, automatic spending reductions occur under this target growth rate. Does IPAB mirror any of that?
No.
You know, so there's really a choice here of what we can do moving forward. Allow time to transpire for delivery system and payment reform to take place, whether it's the ACO models or medical homes or the better coordinated care, the Center for Innovation coming up with ideas and how we can get better value for the dollar, and have IPAB as a backstop for that ultimately. Or we can go down another route, which merely privatizes Medicare, turns it into a private voucher plan, shifts the costs on the backs of seniors, an additional $6,000. And when I look at my congressional district, 80% of the seniors in western Wisconsin rely on Social Security as their sole source of retirement income. 80%. They can't take a $6,000 hit in Medicare. So what I think we need to be working on is what we can do together of trying to reform a delivery system so we do get better value out of the dollars. Am I wrong here, Ms. Moon? Am I missing something of what needs to be accomplished in the healthcare system?
No, I think that's exactly right. I think that this is a very tough problem, and the federal government has a role to play along with consumers and providers and everybody else, and to shift it off onto beneficiaries and make them responsible.
Well, the way I see IPAB ultimately is a panel, again, a backstop if cost constraints don't occur, that they'd kick in, their relevancy would kick in. But their whole task is to find out what's working and what isn't, and then stop creating incentives for doing things that don't work. I mean, in its simplicity, that's what IPAB is really all about. And I support it because I've been around here long enough to see how feckless Congress is trying to act on these reimbursement issues ourselves. I know there's great cause for representative democracy, but you just look back at SGR and what an abysmal failure SGR has been throughout the years. It was a budget savings mechanism inserted in '97 that has always been restored, and that's the problem we always have with these reimbursement issues. Congress doesn't have the backbone or the guts to stand up and try to make these decisions ourselves because we're not experts. And yet IPAB is supposed to be staffed with people with greater knowledge and greater expertise in order to make some of these difficult decisions. Congress can still intervene. There's still that mechanism. But I feel more confident going down the IPAB road than not, given what we face today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Dr. Price.